What is something you used to think people were over-exaggerating about until you experience it yourself? How fast time feels like it goes. Every year feels like it's going faster. The other week my 10-year-old nephew said, "Wow, I haven't heard this song in forever." The little dude was referring to 9 months. Lol. I mean that's 7.5% of his whole life. Migraines. Pure agony. Splitting head. Nausea. Ringing ears. Light hurts. Sound hurts. Moving brings pain. Dizziness. Muscles cramp. Even my teeth hurt. Until I finally fall asleep from exhaustion. But then, 45 minutes later when I wake up, a euphoria that is unmatched by anything I've ever experienced. Edit. Based on the comments I've gotten on this, I'm starting to think there are 2 types of migraines. Probably more, but can be grouped into 2 categories. 1 migraine lasts for a few hours, you take a nap, then feel great. 2 migraine lasts for a day plus, then you feel like shit for a week. Are these 2 different things maybe? Anyone know? Edit 2. I've gotten over 100 comments on this, and I do plan to read them all, eventually, so keep them coming. Some of these are incredibly descriptive and worth the read. Mostly I feel for all of you, this shit stinks. Take care of yourselves. Based on what I'm reading there are treatments for some of these, so I'm gonna suggest that you go see a doctor. Maybe you can get some relief. You might not need to just deal with it yourself. A proper toothache. Tooth abscess. Never seen my husband cry till those 3 days when we couldn't access doctor for pain relief, antibiotics, etc. My dentist referred me to a root canal doctor who said, 1 week, I cried. Back pain. Oh yeah, let's lie on the floor at Walgreens for a little bit and wait until it stops. I never knew why my dad always chose to lie on the floor after coming home from work until I hit my early mid-20s. It sucks so bad. Edit. I appreciate the advice. I've been to the doctors a few times already in the past few years to check out my back. I regularly work out after my office job and maintain a healthy diet. Also, it's not just back pain. My legs have a spasm when I sleep on my back or side. My RMT noticed the f-upness of it and gave me exercises to strengthen my back and core too. In the end it's just me being lazy to apply myself. I guess I'll have to go see another doctor and figure it out for good. Back pain has me convinced that we have not fully developed as a species. Stand all day, back pain. Sit all day, back pain. Back pain. Panic attacks. I thought I knew what panic attacks were when I was younger, and though, why are people making such a big deal out of this stuff? Turns out, I was never having panic attacks. I was just nervous and thought that's what people meant. When I actually had a panic attack, I thought I was going to die, and even then, for some reason I feel like that was 1.5 panic attack. I really wish there was a better, more scientific sounding name. True panic attacks are legit one of the most terrifying things you can experience. But no matter how you try to describe it to other people, if they've never had one themselves they just don't get it. They will just equate it with being really nervous. Like, no, I actually thought I was dying. I truly honestly believed, this is it, I'm going to die now. People don't understand how mentally taxing that is. To be forced to confront your mortality due to a malfunctioning brain, for me multiple times a week when I was at my worst. Anxiety. I thought I understood and didn't understand the big deal until I really felt it. To say it controls you is an understatement. Absolutely agree. Being at war with yourself is ass. You know every strength and weakness within your own self. There is no reasoning with anxiety. I say the same about depression. You're literally fighting your own brain, which knows every strength and weakness you have, knows exactly which buttons to press to make you feel crappy AF. Hot flashes. I didn't think they were this bad. I'm a 31-year-old man who took Wellbutrin for the past month, and hot flashes are a side effect. I thought you just thought you were hot. No mother trucker, you are. You're super hot legitimately, and you have to do something about it or you'll go insane. It's not in your head. It's your brain raising your temps until you can't focus on anything else. How much a kidney stone hurts. Most people expect it to hurt the most when passing a stone through the urethra. Nothing prepared me for the pain as it passed through my kidney ureter. 1 second I would be fine, carrying on conversations, prancing around nimbly bimbly. The next second I would be keeled over, crying in agony, losing my lunch due to the sudden onset of crippling pain. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend. Chronic illness. There is absolutely no way you can truly understand the impact unless you experience it. Just that idea of always being sick, and you will never not be sick again, and you're expected to participate in society just the same as everyone else. It's deeply F up, and no one believes you. It's been years. Get over it. I battled cancer for 4 years, and yes, it's in remission now, but my body is trashed and done for. No immune system. Multiple surgery taking chunks out of my body. Experimental treatments with no real data on long-term side effects. Every single time I catch a cold, I either get pneumonia, or am laid out for weeks. Constantly in pain. Constantly sick. But no cancer. So I guess I won. And need to quit being a baby apparently. It's amazing how once you're in remission, you just get dropped by everyone now that you're not going to die. I can't be the only one who feels this way, right? The physical pain of getting older. Damn. The emotional pain too. I get so nostalgic and teary over the past, and how much has changed. It's a weird grieving process over losing your youth, and the way things were. Waterboarding. We were drunk and figured, it's just water. Hold your breath and you'll be fine. Then I volunteered to test it out and it was the absolute worst. Waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay sounds rad as F. If you don't know what either of them are. Went wakeboarding a few summers ago and kept forgetting what it was called. And when I saw my dad later that day, I told him we were waterboarding at a lake. How great homegrown fruits and vegetables are. I figured that was just gardener talk, justifying their time-consuming hobby. Then I bought a house where the previous owner had a vegetable garden and orchard. That spring I saw these things coming up, out of the ground, and thought, is that asparagus? Cut them and cook them and they were incredible then. The plums ripened. I never even liked plums but I thought I'd try one so I pulled it off the tree and bit into it. Well, that's not bad. Pretty juicy. Fresh picked fruit is far juicier than the stuff in stores. So anyway I ate another plum and then another, and the next thing I know I've been standing there eating plums for like 5 minutes. And the juice is literally, I mean literally, running down my arms and dripping off my elbows. And those hard and sour strawberries you buy in stores are nothing like soft sweet strawberries, slightly warm from the sun, that never make it into the house, because you just sit in the garden eating them as fast as you pick them. And of course, tomatoes. OMG. Once you start growing your own you will never be able to buy another one in a supermarket. The difference between humid and dry heat. I saw a thread where some muffers were trying to argue that dry heat was worse. I'm Australian. Unless you're up north, it's all dry heat, and I'd take dry heat every day of the week over humidity. You can't escape humidity. Yeah, I went to Darwin and around the NT once, in December January. 35 degrees and 75% humidity on the average day. It was brutal. The air was so heavy I could taste it, and no break from sweating buckets the minute you set foot outside. Oh, and on top of that, there's the bush flies that drive you mad. Old people telling when rain was coming based on arthritis symptoms. Edit. There's a few studies that show no correlation. One older one that showed some correlation. Maybe others that cast doubt on the correlation. But it's very hard to prove a negative and the science seems heavily overshadowed by medical practitioners like radiologists, who say there is a correlation because of barometric pressure. I also found it super interesting that the people who mentioned these studies in the comments were downvoted to oblivion. I wavered back and forth about making this edit, before realizing I value accuracy more than karma. Edit 2. Typo on downvoted. I ripped my kneecap out in a bad bicycle accident in high school. I'm 40 now and can barely walk before a big thunderstorm rolls in. The death of a pet. I knew it would be horrible, but I thought it was just a few weeks of grieving. I lost one of my cats to illness, and I didn't even cry. I was in so much shock, nothing felt real. and even to this day I still start to choke up when I think about her. Edit. The cat's name was Judy. Reading these replies has me in tears. Our babies are only around for so long, so we have to love them for every second we have them. We lost one of our cats almost 13 years ago and my husband to this day cannot talk about it without tearing up. Sometimes when my cat is curled up in bed, all I can think of is, WTF am I going to do when he's gone? I truly don't know why, but once that thought gets into my head, I'm pretty much F for sleeping that night. I know it's inevitable, but goddamn does it hurt to know one day will be different than today. You know the grief you see in dramatic movies when someone gets horrible news via phone call and just crumples to the floor wailing? Always felt like melodrama to me, until I got the call that there had been an accident and my dad had died. Edit. Thank you for all your messages and sharing your own stories. I'm going to try to respond to every one. I'm sorry for your loss. It's really terrible experience. I had the opposite problem when my mother passed from an accident. I thought I would just crumble, but it was just so surreal that my brain couldn't seem to emotionally process it. I remember being in the receiving line and just looking over at her and having this, what the F is happening, sort of bewilderment. Often the people I've cared most about, I've been really surprised at how my grief played out. It's been about 9 months since, and I still have a sort of weird sense about it. Like, I haven't called mom in a while. I should do that this weekend. And then remembering, or being surprised that she's not in my list of favorite contacts on my phone. Using a bidet. I thought it was just weird and unnecessary, but during the great COVID TP shortage, I bought a bidet attachment to save on TP, and what a game changer a bidet is. I feel nasty using TP now. My first experience of using a bidet was in Vietnam. I had eaten some questionable street food and had explosive diarrhea. The bidet offered sweet relief, as opposed to abrasive toilet paper. I highly recommend them. I have IBS, and my bidet has helped make it so much better. No more burning chafing rashes from excessive wiping, and that cold water is like heaven. Skinny dipping feels incredible and miles different than swimming with a bathing suit on, and getting out of the water is 1000 times better, with no wet saggy bathing suit attached, and clinging to you. Just wet, free and clear, towel off. I skinny dipped in Lake Michigan on a backpack trip. There was a light breeze and I had left my suit towel back at base camp, but couldn't pass up the opportunity to get in the water on such a beautiful night. The breeze quickly dried me off and I could put my warm clothes back on in less than 2 minutes out of the water. It was glorious. I didn't realize how annoying wet swimsuits are until then. Insomnia. After 3 days, you don't even have a sense of self. You become a zombie of exhaustion. When your adult brain finally gives you a break, you sleep like 4 hours. Enough to flush part of the waste out of the brain matter, but not to function in any capacity. I only had this level of insomnia once in my life, and it has convinced me of the need to have a machine to help put you under. F that a 1000 times. The human brain is amazing but so effing stupid at the same time. Like bro, I know we are stressed but if we don't keep working, you are going to be stressed and starving. Honestly, addiction. When I was in junior high, my dad had an injury at work that ultimately resulted in a pretty bad opiate addiction. I didn't understand how someone could prioritize a pill to such an extent, or how awful they could be if they didn't have it. And then I grew into a person with crippling anxiety who discovered Xanax. The rest is a decade-long story of how I learned empathy, and a lot of other hard lessons. But to have been so naive. Sigh. Restless leg syndrome. I went to rehab and got clean from multiple substances in July 2021 and developed it about a month or so into sobriety. Holy F, I definitely thought it was just like some kind of tic where you had to move your legs. But that is not the effing case at all. Edit. My doctor prescribed me baclofen, which is a muscle relaxer and that has helped tremendously. It's so annoying. Sometimes when I go to sleep and it starts, I feel like I can kick a tank into the atmosphere. Feels like I have 2 spirits on cook in each leg. Not fun. What helps me though, is using my legs during the day. Get some energy out. If I haven't moved much that day, I usually just do some squats till my legs are tired. Might not work for everyone, but it has helped me a lot. Seeing stars. Thought it was an exaggeration until I had a very bad coughing fit and suddenly I'm seeing stars. Perfectly fitting terminology. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes. And really cool to see all of your stories. Such a whimsical neurological phenomenon, right? Happened to me when I was running really hard. I looked up and my first thought was, holy shit, they really are stars. Depression. The dead giveaway that people don't understand is when they ask, what's making you sad? I am not sad. I feel empty. And there is no reason for it. That's the worst. What's wrong? Effing nothing. I have zero justification to feel this way. What's wrong? The goo in my head has stopped making the feely good care happy time chemical, and now I don't get out of bed anymore. Giant sequoia trees. When I finally saw them in person, they looked fake. I could not comprehend a tree of that size. Everything is so much quieter under them and the air is cooler, too. Being as a stupid teen, it made seem to me in most cases to consider it as simply an overreaction. Like, work. I'm so pissed off. I'll just KMS. Like, don't be dramatic, just chill and you'll snap out of it. Think of your family, friends, the good things you have. PSA. Do not effing say those things to a person. It will almost certainly result in the opposite of the intended effect. In my mid-20s, my mental health took a massive nosedive and I learned that it most certainly is not a case of being dramatic during a case of the blues. It's your brain winning an argument against itself and insisting death is the best choice. No more pain. No more being a burden. Selfish not to end it all. I didn't want to die, but I didn't know how to want to live anymore. If that makes sense. For 2 years I was on S-Watch, my meds monitored, as I tried to remind myself daily that this was my mental illness, lying to me, and it would be temporary. It's immensely painful, I swear. The mental pain would become so strong you could feel it in your chest and throat, like a very deep bruising after being punched. I've spoken to other people who experienced similar symptoms and thank God. I thought I was going nuts if I could physically feel mental illness. It was all in all a horrible experience. I'm still pretty mentally ill, but I take care to avoid getting to that stage again. I believe you can truly understand being S unless you've experienced the feeling, but it's something I hope nobody here ever does, or has to consider. Period cramps. I had severe appendicitis and I thought it was indigestion or something, because period cramps are way worse. When I got hit by a car, my nurse asked me to rate my pain. I hadn't done that before, so I said my broken hand was not as bad as period cramps, but a lot worse than standing on a sprained ankle. Honestly, most of labor childbirth, the second time around, was less painful than the period cramps I had as a teenager. How heartbreaking it is to see your child suffering, and you can't do shit about it. I read a comment a few years back about someone whose 6-year-old died of cancer, and at the end there was nothing they could do. They were just with him, and he was scared and in pain, and there was nothing they could do, and they watched him die. I couldn't stop thinking about it for days. To be 6 and you understand that you're going away forever, and your mom and dad can't come with you, and you're scared, but they can do absolutely nothing. They can't help you. If I wouldn't be able to live with that in my head. Just eject me from the universe at that point. How incredibly amazing narcotics feel. Had back surgery and was hooked up to an IV of Dilaudid with one of those buttons, so you could give yourself a little treat every 30 minutes. Holy effing shit. I have never felt pure heavenly euphoric comfort like that before, nor have I since. I can completely see how people get addicted to the stuff. When my wife and I had COVID, we were prescribed a cough medication that had codeine in it. Now, despite being a big dude, even small doses of any sort of drug that makes you sleepy seems to hit me like a truck. And every dose of that just made like 8 hours of my life just disappear. Like it would start to feel really good for a few minutes, and the next thing I know, the clock had skipped ahead like 9 hours. Combine that with the fact that the first night we had gotten some horrible information about something that happened to a close family member, and that codeine provided an almost immediate escape from having to think about it. While I didn't get hooked on it or anything, it was so easy to see how people can become dependent on it. How much stress can F you up physically? When I was a kid, my mum had a horrendous job in a call center that made her so stressed she could barely get out of bed on her days off and was plagued by a mysterious allergy the doctors couldn't figure out. I figured it was depression at the time, but as an adult, I know it was literally stress, because then it happened to me. My last job F up my wages and left me with pretty much nothing for food and bills. After my rent for about 2 months, I got so stressed out I shed almost all the skin in my mouth, lips, had shooting pains in my arms, my skin broke out, my nails became really brittle, I was constantly nauseous and really gassy, bloated, with no appetite, chest pain so bad I was sure it was a heart attack, and then like the day after the next payday, I suddenly felt pretty much fine, because I wasn't as stressed anymore. That was in April, and by mid-May I was 99% back to normal. My jacked up nails are still a little janky, but they grow slow. Sleep paralysis. I really legitimately thought I was going to die. My retina were burnt in a way where I couldn't even close my eyes or look away from the impending doom. I felt slimy blood come out of my ears as my tinnitus got progressively louder. A creature was slowly advancing. My chest compressed, all until it suddenly went away, right before the kill, and I regained control of myself. Honestly, how hard it is for someone to leave a toxic relationship. When I was younger, I used to think, yeah, no way, if ever let someone treat me like that, no way. But it's like you have blinders on when you're in that situation. Almost like you can't see what everyone else sees, and when they try to tell you, it just rolls off you like water. It leaves you feeling mildly uncomfortable for a bit, but you give it long enough and it goes away. Even when you start noticing the lies piling up, start admitting to yourself that maybe you're being abused, catching the slips of their infidelity left and right. I lost a few friends that tried to tell me what was going on, before it was suddenly like my head was above the water. I was awake, and almost hypocritically, I still look back at myself and think, why didn't I just leave sooner? Paranoia hallucinations. I kinda only viewed it as something I saw on TV, but about 8 years ago, a doctor put me on the wrong combo of meds, and for about 7 days, I was experiencing both extreme paranoia coupled with hallucinations. Everything I saw during that time was basically not real and not happening. I called my mum and told her I was in the ER and they were abusing me, until all of a sudden 10 minutes after I hung up, I came to in my bed. But to this day, I would have bet you so much that was real. I also saw things that were not there in my apartment, and kept sending pictures of these things to my mum, but they were just normal pictures of my apartment. The exhaustion of parenting small children. I used to burn the midnight oil in school and stuff, and I thought I knew what sleep deprivation was. Holy crap, babies are on another level. It's not like finals week which will end, or a party you chose to go to. It just grinds on and on. Paradoxically, because it lasts so long, you get much less slack than you would if a one-time emergency kept you up all night. It goes on for years at a level most people would call a crisis if it was brief, but it's just your life, and you have to somehow do it. I legitimately thought that having a C-section was the easy way to have a baby, cheating even. I probably said some things I shouldn't have about people. Karma gave me 3 C-sections after that, including one with ineffective anesthesia. It was hell. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Shit was traumatic. I remember being out with my first baby, and the waitress asking me about labor, and when she heard I'd had a C-section she said, I was lucky. Yeah, no, and it's bullshit that planned C-sections are easier. I've had those too. There's very little difference between surgery at the end of labor, which I've done twice, and planned surgery, which I've also done twice, plus a third plan that turned emergency. Either way, you're recovering from major abdominal surgery with a newborn, or a newborn and a toddler, or a newborn, a toddler, and several older children, depending on how things go. I've recently developed adenomyosis, which is kinda like endometriosis. Basically, the lining of my uterus grows into the muscle. Every month for around a week I get these excruciating cramps. I'm talking rolling around the floor groaning with tears. It's so bad I can't walk or sit straight, but it also hurts so much I can't sit still. Nothing fixes it, but after 15 or so minutes it will stop, only to come back a couple hours later. For this week I'm afraid to get out of bed. Standing up after laying down for a while triggers it. Afraid to orgasm because that triggers it. Afraid to sleep because I wake up at 2 AM in pain. I'm late to work because I can't drive while I'm in that much pain. I can't go out with my boyfriend because I don't know what I'd do if I were in a bar or mall, and it happened. Just a week of fear and anxiety and the worst pain I've ever imagined. It's like I'm being stabbed, on and off randomly, for an entire week. I never know when it's going to start or when it ends. And at the end of it all I get my period. A solar eclipse. I saw one when I was by myself on the backside of a large farm property, so nobody around for a mile or so, and it was a profound experience. It felt like the world paused for a second, as the day disappeared into night within minutes and every living creature that I could hear suddenly went silent. Even the bees stopped buzzing. Completely eerie. Then to top it off, the sun was shining through the cracks between the leaves of all the trees, which had a pinhole camera effect, and cast millions of crescents on the ground around me. I'm not a religious person, but in that moment, I understood why ancient civilizations would base parts of their culture or religion around the occurrence of an eclipse. My mom gets these blood pressure drops sometimes. I'd see her stumble over, falling onto the couch, or even one time passing out at our kitchen table. Well, one day I was smoking with a few friends and my blood pressure went. It wasn't sudden, but I noticed my vision start to fade at the edges towards the center, rocking back and forth. Because my body was struggling to balance properly, I decided to grab the nearest door handle and lean into the door. Then, the tinnitus. I have tinnitus normally, but not anywhere near bad. Well, it grew louder until I could no longer hear anything, and at this point I passed out. Luckily, the door handle provided help, and I had put my arm out as I went. I regained consciousness right as I almost hit my friend in front of me. It's odd. My mom will lay down and not be able to sit up when it happens to her, and I never understood until I was 6 inches from bashing my head against a solid surface. That is, my dad and I both lift weights, so I had thought that this wouldn't happen due to me exercising, but I guess not. Now when my friends and I smoke I always have a seat ready in case I notice my vision going again. When something happens to someone you love, you can never really understand, like fully, until it happens to you. My grandpa has worked construction his whole life, doctor-in-law and was a lawyer, still does construction after retirement, because it's what he loves, and had a heart attack after he got out of the hospital from one of the many surgeries he's gonna have to have. He's fine. We helped him up the stairs to his house and stayed with him for an hour or so. Me, mom and dad. Imagine being 16 and the head of your house. Grandpa on dad's side left his family when dad was 11 and I never met him, and the most kind, loving, and also strongest and most powerful, 6 feet tall and built, person in your life, who you've spent your whole life looking up to, and having to help him up the stairs and watch him in his house, because he is shaky and weak. Easily the saddest and one of the most difficult things I've been through. It's not exactly exaggerated, but it's something people can't truly grasp until they experience it. Cherish the people you love as long as you can, because they might be gone the next day, and you may never know or get to say goodbye. The major surgery he's gonna go through has an average expectancy of patient living 17 years after surgery, and he says that living into his 90s is fine by him, even though he's always been an above and beyond man, and he's one of the greatest people in my life. Sorry about the essay. Menopause. As a young medical student in the 90s, I would see women come in the OB-GYN clinic every Tuesday, menopause patient day, with a long list of complaints. They generally looked haggard, couldn't sleep, were gaining weight and would sweat profusely during the appointment. I seriously thought they were greatly exaggerating their complaints, dismissing it in my mind as, how bad can it be? Well, now I am that cranky old woman constantly sweating. There is a great range of symptoms and experiences in menopause, but it is a living hell for some, and it lasts for years, not months. Trying to function with ADHD was fine before I was on my own, and could rely on my parents to remember and take care of the things I didn't know. Now I live in a hell. That's a cycle of being self-aware enough to recognize my faults, but physically unable to do anything about them. To those who don't have ADHD, it seems like those who do have it are lazy and unwilling. But trust me, there's a difference between I don't want to do this and I am physically incapable of motivating myself to get this done.